with an absence of free will. You don't, I mean, coming to back to the place we started, you don't know what you're going to think next. You don't know what you're going to intend next. You don't know what's going to just occur to you that you must do next. You don't know how much you are going to feel the behavioral imperative to act on that thought. If you suddenly feel, oh, I don't need to do that. I can do that tomorrow. You don't know where that comes from. You didn't know that was going to arise. You didn't know that was going to be compelling. All of this is compatible with some evil genius in the next room just typing in code into your experience. It's like this, okay, let's give him the, oh my God, I just forgot it was going to be our anniversary in 1 week thought, right? Give him the cascade of fear.
Yeah.
Give him this brilliant idea for the thing he can buy that's going to take him no time at all, and this overpowering sense of relief. All of our experience is compatible with the script already being written, right? And I'm not saying the script is written. I'm not saying that fatalism is the right way to look at this, but we just don't have even our most deliberate voluntary action where we go back and forth between two options, thinking about the reason for A and then reconsidering and going thinking harder about B and just going eeny, meeny, miny, mo until the end of the hour. However laborious you can make it, there is a utter mystery at your back finally promoting the thought or intention or rationale that is most compelling and therefore deliberate, behaviorally effective, and just this can drive some people a little crazy. So I usually preface what I say about free will with the caveat that if thinking about your mind this way makes you feel terrible, well then stop. Get off the ride. Switch the channel. You don't have to go down this path. But for me and for many other people, it's incredibly freeing to recognize this about the mind, because one you realize that cutting through the illusion of the self is immensely freeing for a lot of reasons that we can talk about separately. But losing the sense of free will does two things very vividly for me. One is it totally undercuts the psychological basis for hatred, right? Because when you think about the experience of hating other people, what that is anchored to is a feeling that they really are the true authors of their actions. I mean, that someone is doing something that you find so despicable, right? Let's say they're targeting you unfairly, right? They're maligning you on Twitter, or they're suing you, or they're doing something. They broke your car window. They did something awful, and now you have a grievance against them, and you're relating to them very differently emotionally in your own mind than you would if a force of nature had done this, right? Or if it had just been a virus, or if it had been a wild animal, or a malfunctioning machine, right? Like, to those things you don't attribute any kind of freedom of will. And while you may suffer the consequences of catching a virus or being attacked by a wild animal or having your car break down or whatever, it may frustrate you. You don't slip into this mode of hating the agent in a way that completely commandeers your mind and deranges your life. I mean, you just don't. I mean, there are people who spend decades hating other people for what they did, and it's just pure poison.
So it's a useful shortcut to compassion.
And then you can decide how you want to go through life, and how you want to experience each one of those days. And so back to where our jumping off point, I would argue that you don't want to feel self-hatred ever. I would argue that you don't want to really really grasp on to any of those moments where you are internalizing the fact that you just made an error, you embarrassed yourself, that something didn't go the way you wanted it to. I think you want to treat all of those moments very, very lightly. You want to extract the actionable information. It's something to learn. I learned that when I prepare in a certain way, it works better than when I prepare in some other way or don't prepare, right? Like, so like, yes, lesson learned, and do that differently. But, yeah, I mean, so many of us have spent so much time with a very dysfunctional and hostile and even hateful inner voice governing a lot of our self-talk and a lot of just our default way of being with ourselves. I mean, the privacy of our own minds. We're in the company of a real jerk a lot of the time, and that can't help but affect. I mean, forget about just your own sense of well-being. It can't help but limit what you're capable of in the world with other people.
I'll have to really think about that. I just take pride that my inner voice jerk, is much less of a jerk than like somebody like David Goggins, who's just like screaming in his ear constantly. So I have a relativist kind of perspective that it's not as bad as that, at least.
Well, having a sense of humor also helps. It's just like, it's not, the stakes are never quite what you think they are. And even when they are, I mean, it's just the difference between being able to see the comedy of it rather than because again, there's this sort of dark star of self-absorption that pulls everything into it, right? And it's like if that's the algorithm you don't want to run. So it's like you just want things to be good. So like just push the concern out there, like not have the collapse of, oh my God, what does this say about me? It's just like, what does this say about how do we make this meal that we're all having together as fun and as useful as possible?
And you're saying in terms of propulsion systems, you recommend humor as a good spaceship to escape the gravitational field of that darkness.
Well, that certainly helps. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about ego